If you'd asked me last spring what trust looked like, I would have said it looked like our living room at 11:42 p.m. A lamp on low, a blanket kicked to my feet, my wife's smile over a wine glass, and Buster tapping his tail against the baseboard after one of those sighs dogs do when they're happy for no reason. That was my picture of it. Nothing dramatic, just easy. So when Paige started doing monthly girls' nights with the same 4 women, co-workers from her marketing team, all sharp and funny and a little too obsessed with true crime podcasts, I didn't blink. Frankly, it sounded healthy. Lord knows I said yes to way too many happy hours at the firm. Paige was 31, I was 33, and between my hours as a CPA and her launches, we were both worn thin. Let them drink Prosecco, complain about bosses, trade skincare secrets, come home smelling like citrus body mist and the kind of perfume ads show you riding a gray horse on the beach. Fine by me. The first time she stayed out past midnight, she texted at 12:06 a.m. Running late. Sasha locked her keys in her Uber. Be home soon. Love you. I turned the TV off and waited for the sound of her key. At 12:43, there she was. Cheeks flushed, hair in a loose knot, a smear of lipstick just a hair outside the line, like she'd laughed too hard. I kissed her. She tasted like mint and something sweet. The second girls' night, she said they'd booked a table downtown. The third, a rooftop bar. The fourth, an Airbnb, so we could, spread out and play games. I don't know why that one pricked me. Maybe the Airbnb part. Maybe the word game said in that chirpy tone people use when they're trying to slide a questionable detail past you, like a bartender sliding a shot across a crowded counter. Still, I swallowed the feeling. Because the truth is, you can only be as married as you are brave enough to be honest. And that night, I wasn't brave. I asked if I should pick her up. She said no. I asked if she wanted my card for the deposit. She said Jolene had handled it. No worries. Then came the 5th girls' night. I was in bed when the group chat on my phone started erupting. Not my chat. Paige's Apple Watch had pinged and lit up half the bedroom like a soft, underwater thunderstorm. She'd left it on her charger on the dresser, something she never did. And each vibration shook the wood a little. I pulled the covers up. I closed my eyes. I pretended not to read the screen with its glowing preview lines. You with him? Don't be dumb, Nat. She said she was done. Are we still meeting at 11 then? Tell Paige not to forget the key card. The last one wasn't from a contact. It was from an unsaved number. And that word, key card, lodged in my ribs like a splinter. I stared at the ceiling. I told myself it could be nothing. Maybe they'd gotten a hotel room to avoid driving. Maybe someone's boyfriend had points and booked it for them. But as a man whose job is mostly making numbers tell the truth, I knew what key card almost always means in real life. A door that leads to a place you don't need unless you're trying to be unseen. I didn't sleep. At 2:19 a.m., the front door clicked. Buster's nails ticked across the hardwood. I kept my eyes closed, fake sleeping like a coward, listening for signals in her footsteps. Whisper quiet. Shower on. 10 minutes. Then she slid into bed and gave me the softest, lightest kiss on my shoulder. A kiss you give a stranger you don't want to wake. I could have turned just then. Could have asked. Could have blown it up. Instead, I did what 1,000 married people do right before things get worse. I filed the feeling away in a drawer labeled "Don't be paranoid" and promised myself to open it later. The drawer broke open 2 days after the 6th girls' night, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and a text that changed the whole shape of my life. You don't know me. I'm Nora. I'm one of Paige's girls' nights. I need to talk to you. It's about her. I don't pick up unknown numbers. I get enough spam about my car warranty for a car I don't own anymore. But the text had the kind of specificity you can't fake. Not I have information about your partner. Not I'm from the IRS. The quotation marks around girls' nights did it. Whoever this was had been in the room. I called. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was low, like she was calling from a coat closet. Is this Mark? My throat felt like I'd swallowed a paperclip. Yes. I don't want to make this worse than it is, she said. But I can't keep going to these and pretending I don't see what I see. Your wife is meeting someone. I sat down. Buster lifted his head from the rug and let it flop back down, blissfully unaware that the air pressure in the room had just changed. Who? I said, because your brain tries to grab at the simplest noun when the world tilts. Who? Where? When? His name is Owen, she said. He's the CMO on that health tech campaign they did last quarter. Married, 2 kids. We don't all know her well, but we know enough. The first time it happened, she said she was over it the next morning, but that was a lie. They meet at the Hyatt on 8th. She paused. They use key cards. Owen books the room. My mouth went dry. How do you know all this? I saw them, she said. I keep seeing them. Paige thinks I go smoke or FaceTime my sister. I'm in the hallway sometimes. I'm not proud of that. I don't want to be the spy friend. But it got to the point where I couldn't look at you at the holiday party and feel like a human. Silence rose up like a curtain between us. Then Nora said something I didn't expect from a stranger who just detonated my life with a sentence. If you want proof, don't confront her tonight. She's meeting him tomorrow. I can get you what you need. What do you mean? I mean, I already asked to host girls' night at my place, she said. And then, at 9:15, we'll all leave for a speakeasy down the street. Paige will forget her jacket. She'll tell us to go on and that she'll catch up. Owen doesn't know who I am. He thinks I'm one of the others. If you drive to the Hyatt and sit in your car with your lights off facing the loading alley, you'll see them go in. 11 minutes after that, they'll take the service elevator. Nora had done the work. My brain hated that it believed every detail immediately. My heart hated that my brain was right. Why are you doing this? I asked. She let out a breath. Because 3 years ago, I was Paige, and the only thing that stopped me was the person who told the truth to the person who needed it most. The man who still loved me enough to leave. Another breath. This is me paying forward the worst kindness I've ever received. I thanked her. I wrote the address down. When I hung up, I sat in the quiet house that had always felt sturdy and felt something I'd never felt there before. The way a storm front makes the whole block go still. Birds vanishing, air thickening, as if the neighborhood itself is holding its breath. At 9 the next night, I parked across from the Hyatt's loading dock with the radio off, the car in neutral and my palms going damp on the leather. At 9:21, I watched my wife walk out of a rideshare in a black dress I didn't recognize and a smile I did. She glanced over her shoulder like people do in movies when they're about to run away. The man who followed 2 steps behind her wore a camel coat and the kind of face you remember from a leadership page on a website. A face that says, I'm trusted with other people's money. They didn't touch in the alley. They didn't have to. They moved like 2 people who had outlined a floor plan, and now were just walking through to admire it. I watched them disappear into the gray door by the dumpsters. At 9:38, a service elevator shuddered up to the 12th floor. I didn't cry. I didn't pound the steering wheel. I did what my job had trained me to do. I wrote everything down to the minute, down to what she wore, down to which side of her hair she tucked behind her ear when she laughed. Because that is how you save yourself later. By giving your future self a record, your present self can barely stand to write. At 10:03, my phone buzzed. Nora, I saw them go in. I'm sorry. Me, thank you. Nora, there's more we can do. But you need a plan. And that's how I found myself 2 days later at a diner off I-5, sitting across from a woman who looked like she'd slept 3 hours and still somehow carried herself like a kindness you didn't deserve, but were going to get anyway. Nora put a manila folder between the salt shaker and the napkin holder. Before we talk about anything, you should know I'm not going to push you to confront, she said. People say the word closure like it's a spell. Mostly it's just a fire drill where everyone runs in circles and nobody gets out any faster. We can gather. We can be boring. Boring wins court. Court? I repeated. It sounded too dramatic in a booth with laminated menus. Look, she said, stirring her coffee. I don't know what you want. Maybe you forgive. People do. But I'm telling you as someone who's been both the hurricane and the house in the path. Whatever you do it awake. If you want to save the marriage, you still need a trail. If you don't, you need it more. What's in the folder? Hyatt invoices I pulled from an account I can't legally tell you about, she said dryly. Screenshots of Owen's name on the health tech company's travel portal. 2 of the other girls will write statements. Also, I printed the gym fob logs. Paige could argue anything else. It's harder to argue with the RFID chip on your keychain. My stomach turned over. This is a lot. Nora's face softened. You don't have to use any of it. But here's the thing I wish someone had said to me. Stop waiting for the version of you that feels noble enough to do the impossible thing. He's not coming. You will always love her some percent while you do the hard thing. That's what makes you a person, not a headline. We talked through options, confrontation scripts, counselors on both sides of the river, mediators, the reality of infidelity in Washington's no-fault framework, how property division doesn't care whose heart broke first, but how evidence can still matter when it's tied to financial misconduct, workplace policy violations, or commingled funds. She sounded like she'd done this before, too many times. Why are you so calm? I asked finally. Because if I shake, you drown, she said simply. And I need you to swim. I went home with the folder under my arm, like contraband no one asked about. For 2 days I cooked dinner and we watched a home renovation show, and Paige curled against me on the couch, and I almost convinced myself that everything could be squared again if we just didn't touch the live wire between us. On Thursday, her phone buzzed face down on the ottoman while she showered. I didn't go looking. It was a preview. Hyatt 12th confirmed for 9:30. Keycard at front. No name. Just a number and the kind of message you send when you've done this enough times to abbreviate your lies. I put the phone back where it was, walked into the bathroom, and said from the doorway, "We should talk tonight." The water shut off. She slid the door open, face open and empty like a stage before a show. About what? Us, I said. More specifically, about your Fridays. She held my eyes a beat too long, then smiled the practiced smile of anyone who has ever had to live on charm. Babe, seriously? We're good. I know I've been more social, new team, new account. Plus, if I don't get out with them sometimes, I'll forget I speak adult English. She squeezed water from her hair. Don't be weird. I nodded like a man apologizing to a train that's already leaving. Okay. I didn't mention Nora. I didn't say Hyatt. I didn't say the word Owen out loud. Instead, I texted an attorney whose card had lived in my wallet for 4 years for work reasons, but had never felt like it applied to me. She replied in 7 minutes. We can meet tomorrow morning. Bring whatever you have, and I'm sorry. That part isn't legal advice. It's human. That night, Paige fell asleep on my shoulder with one leg thrown over mine the way she'd done since grad school. I stared at the ceiling and counted the revolutions of the ceiling fan. And somewhere between 31 and 32, I made a promise I didn't know I could keep, to tell the truth once, clearly, and to live with whatever came next without bargaining with myself in the mirror. If you've never walked into a law office with a folder you wish didn't exist, let me tell you what it feels like. Like the air is heavier. Like your feet scuff the carpet instead of stepping on it. Like every water cooler conversation hushed because they all know why people come in on Fridays at 8 a.m. I sat in a small conference room with a view of the Willamette and handed over the manila folder. The attorney, her name was Dana Ward, opened it and didn't look up for 6 minutes. When she did, she exhaled like a diver coming up. "This is thorough," she said. "Whoever helped you gather it understands both risk and compassion." "Her name is Nora," I said. Dana nodded. "You have enough to confront in a way that isn't just yelling. If your goal is reconciliation, we set guardrails. If your goal is separation, we draft and then decide when to serve. If your goal is to tie this to workplace issues so that her company or his intervenes, we discuss cost-benefit. That route eats souls." "What would you do?" "Wrong question," she said. "The right question is, what will you hate yourself least for in 5 years? I stared at the river and thought of the version of me who would mow the lawn on a Saturday and feel the sun on his forearms and not feel it as an accusation. "I don't want to set fire to her life," I said, "but I won't live in a house with a hidden exit she uses every Friday." "Then we give her a choice," Dana said. "Submit to full disclosure, devices, accounts, calendar sharing, a polygraph if you want it for your heart, therapy twice a week, a no-contact letter drafted with me and sent certified to him and his spouse, a work transfer request, and transparency measures for a period tailored to your tolerance. If she balks at any of that, you'll know, and if she agrees and then violates, you'll also know, and have a signed agreement she breached." "His spouse?" Dana slid a paper across the table. "This is a template letter I use when the other party's married. It is not revenge. It is disclosure to a person materially affected. You don't owe her silence. She will be in the blast radius whether you warn her or not. It's better if she's warned." The drive home took 9 minutes. I watched a woman cross the street with a toddler's hand in hers and felt a grief so precise it could have cut diamonds. We didn't have kids. We were waiting until we weren't tired all the time, which is another way of saying we wanted perfect conditions to work our courage. And now the timeline had moved without us. I confronted Paige that evening at the dining table we bought secondhand the summer we got married. I put the folder between the placemats like a centerpiece I hated. She looked at it like a magician looks at a volunteer who keeps ruining the trick. "What is this?" "A choice," I said. When she opened it and saw the Hyatt invoices, the printouts, the same text format she knew too well, she made a sound I hope to never hear again in my life. A sound like a person stepping on a live wire. Then she was on her feet, words tumbling out in a rush. "Mark, baby, wait. Okay, yes. I screwed up. Okay, It's complicated." "It's not," I said. She sat. She put her hands flat on the table like she was preparing to press up to standing. "I don't love him," she said. "This wasn't about leaving. It was about—" She glanced at the ceiling as if an answer might be taped there. "About remembering what it felt like to be wanted just because." "By secret," I said. "Wanted by secret. Not the same thing." She started to cry, quiet and steady. like a person praying. I'm sorry, I am. I know this is the part where I'm supposed to beg. But if I beg, you won't trust anything I say anyway. So here is the truth. I thought I could keep the pieces in separate rooms forever. I was wrong. I slid Dana's summary across. These are the conditions under which we try to make a marriage again, I said. Full disclosure, no contact letter to him and his wife. Her name is Hannah. I know because I looked. Transfer requests, counseling, a written apology you'll hate writing, and I'll hate reading, and you'll send it anyway. And you will give me every device on which a secret could live. Polygraph? She asked, eyes flashing up like she'd been hit. If that helps me stop picturing an elevator, I said. Yes. She nodded slowly, like she was memorizing steps someone else had laid out on a floor she didn't choose. Okay, she said. I'll do it. And if you don't, I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised me, we'll separate. I won't set you on fire, but I won't live in smoke. She blew out a breath that wobbled at the end. I'll do it, she repeated. Then she added so quietly I almost missed it. Do you still love me? God help me, I said. Yes. And that's the hardest kind of yes there is. The one you say after the part of you that wanted out has already started packing. The no-contact letter to Hannah should have been simple. Dana wrote a clean, human paragraph. Disclosure only. No editorial. No detail that wasn't necessary. Sent certified mail and by email with read receipts. Paige read it and chewed the corner of her mouth the way she does when she can't find a fork at a restaurant drawer. I'll sign, she said. But can I do it after our session tomorrow? I want to have a therapist in the loop so I don't fall apart and call you from the parking lot like a lunatic. I said, okay. I wanted to show mercy to the woman I had married, even if it meant telling the truth slower. That night, she moved into the guest room. Buster slept outside her door, because dogs do not understand the ways humans hurt each other, and maybe it's better that way. At 10:06 a.m. the next day, Dana texted, "No contact letter signed." I responded, "Therapy at 9. She'll sign after." Dana sent a thumbs-up emoji, which looked, in that moment, like a judge nodding. At 1:42, Dana called. "I need you to breathe," she said. "Hannah just emailed me a screenshot. Owen received a text at 12:17. I can't do this anymore. Please don't contact me." It was from a number he had saved as Paige. At 12:23, he received another. "I'm sorry, ignore that. Tonight? Same number." My stomach dropped so fast I felt it in my knees. What? Either he's saving Paige under multiple names, Dana said, or your wife wrote a no-contact text and then reversed it 6 minutes later. I hung up. I walked to the guest room. I knocked. Paige opened the door with eyes red like she'd been drawing the salt out of her body through her tear ducts. "Hey," she said. "I was just about to come down." "Did you text him?" She closed her eyes. "Mark." "Did you text him, yes or no?" I said, my voice perfectly round, like a marble in my mouth. "I panicked," she said. "I sent it, and then I thought about him showing it to his wife. This woman I don't even know, seeing my words on his phone like a crime scene, and I undid it. I was going to tell you. I was. I'm telling you now. I have a certified letter we're sending to the woman whose life is on the other side of your apologies," I said. "You cannot be more careful of him than you are of her." She sat on the bed like her legs had ended. "I know. I'm sorry." "Send the letter. I'll sign the ink version." "I will." She looked up at me from a face I recognized from our wedding photos and our first apartment and the flu we got at the same time. I'm trying. Trying is not a verb that fixes damage, I said. It's just the verb you use when you don't have a better one. Sign the letter. She signed it. Dana sent it. Hannah opened it at 7:14 p.m. and replied at 7:19 with 4 words. Thank you for warning me. Then a 5th. I'm so sorry. 3 hours later, Paige told me she felt sick and went to bed. I sat at the kitchen table with Buster's head on my knee and stared at nothing, which is how you practice for loss. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a Seattle area code. Is this Mark? A woman asked. Yes. This is Hannah. We were quiet a beat too long. Then she said, brisk and kind, I received the letter. I want you to know, you did the right thing. It made me nauseous, but it was right. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't want to inflict anything. You gave me agency, she said. I won't forget that. We talked for 7 minutes, high level, respectful, like 2 people exchanging insurance information after a crash the other driver caused. When we hung up, I felt not better, but steadier. That afternoon, Nora texted, do not go to the Hyatt tonight. She's not going. I texted back, how do you know? Her reply, because I just watched Owen walk into our office huddle room and call someone with the words, it's not safe. We got caught. Lay low. I'll handle it. Then, I can end this another way. But you have to be okay with theater. What kind of theater? I asked. The kind where lies trip over their own shoelaces, she wrote. Show up at the Fairview Wine Bar at 7:05. Sit at the second table by the window. Don't say my name when I come in. I wore the kind of outfit you wear when you want to look like a respectable divorcee in a movie. Dark jeans, a gray sweater. The jacket Paige said made me look like I read newspapers no one else could find. The wine bar glowed the way only urban spaces glow in winter. Gold and forgiving. At 7:12, Nora walked in like a person on a mission and like a person soft enough to be trusted. She wasn't alone. Behind her came Sasha and Jolene, 2 of the girls' night regulars I'd met exactly twice at company events. They didn't look at me. They slid into a corner banquette and started the kind of chatter that is either real or the kind of fake that fools everyone until it's too late. At 7:19, Paige walked in, cheeks high with color, scanning the room for somebody who wasn't me. Owen followed 2 minutes later, picked up a menu, and used it to hide behind like a first-semester spy. Nora stood, laughed a little too loudly, and hugged Paige like they were performing a reunion for a small audience. Drinks? She chirped. You made it. Then she glanced at Owen and said in a bright voice that carried, Oh, you brought a friend. Fun. He wilted an inch. We just... Nora waved a hand. Say less. She snapped her fingers to the bartender. 5 frosés and 2 cabernets. She did it like someone dropping confetti. 2 tables glanced over. Good. Witnesses. I did my part. I paid my bill and stood, putting on my jacket slowly like a man giving the room cues. I walked past the banquette, dropped my keys, and bent to pick them up. Hey, I said quietly to Paige. Didn't know you were coming here. Her face went arctic. Mark, what are you doing here? Getting a glass of wine, I said, gesturing toward the door. Now I'm getting air. Owen touched his jaw. Just a finger, the way men do when they're about to lie and need to remember what their face is doing. We should go, he muttered. Stay. Nora sang, loudly enough that the word pinged off the windows. We're celebrating. We raised $250,000 for the pediatric cancer campaign. Can you believe it? A woman at a nearby table clapped reflexively. The bartender nodded like he was always happy to pour for people doing good. Good. More witnesses. Nora let a beat pass. Then she said, still smiling, "By the way, Paige, did you ever send that apology you wrote for the Hyatt staff? I loved the part where you said, 'We made a mess and left it for other people to clean up.' That was poetic." Silence hit the table so hard it rattled the glassware. Jolene blinked. Sasha put her elbow on the table and did the universal sign for keep going. "What apology?" Owen said, because he couldn't not. Nora's smile didn't move. "The one you and Paige were going to send for using the service elevator like you worked there. Or should I call it the 'we borrowed privacy' letter?" Paige's mouth opened. Closed. Opened. "Nora." "Here's the thing," Nora said, dropping her voice an octave and losing the smile. "I don't do moral crusades, but I do house rules. House Rule 1, don't make me complicit with my ignorance. House Rule 2, don't make a server clean up after your secret. House Rule 3, if you're going to lie, end the story before you invite people you love to be extras." Owen stood. "We're leaving." "Good idea," Nora said. "But before you go, Owen, Hannah knows, and she's stronger than you calculated." He went gray. Paige looked at me like she'd been dropped into a play after the second act. "You told his wife?" she whispered. I met her eyes. I told the truth to the person the lie would have hurt most next. Paige put a hand to her chest like she'd swallowed a live coal. "I thought." "I know what you thought," I said softly. "You thought you could keep the fire in a room with no vents." Owen shoved his chair back and nearly tripped a busboy. "This is insane," he snapped. "You're all insane. You used to say I was the sanest person you knew," Nora said. And for the first time I saw it, the grief under her composure. Turns out I'm just the only one who will say the thing out loud. They left, not together. Owen through the front like a dare. Paige through the side door like a prayer. Nora sat down slowly, like she'd set down a heavy box. "I'm sorry it had to be theater," she said without looking at me. "He'd never stop without an audience." I nodded. People rarely do. "Now," she said, reaching for her glass, "comes the boring part. The paperwork, the logins, the weekly check-ins that feel like parole and are the only way out of prison." "I don't know if we can do it," I said. It felt like putting my hand on a hot stove just to say it. "You don't have to know," Nora said. "You have to choose." The next 3 weeks were a symphony of small, humiliating logistics. Paige turned over her phone, laptop, tablet, work calendar, Apple ID, credit card portals. We sat at the dining table like co-CEOs of an unpleasant startup called Transparency Inc. Dana set up a read-only vault. I could view but not change, so that when we were old and forgetful, we could show each other we didn't cheat with edits. We did therapy twice a week, one individual for each of us, one marital. In the joint sessions, Paige said things that would have flayed me a month earlier, but now just landed in the dust where my illusions had been. That she felt like an accessory in her own life. That she'd gone numb in the places that used to fire her up. That the first time she lied, it felt like a small rebellion, and the 100th, it felt like a place to sleep. She did not ask me to absolve it. She asked me to believe her when she said she wanted to live another way. We built rules like scaffolding. If a Friday triggered her, she texted me the moment it did, and we made a plan. A movie neither of us would have chosen voluntarily. Tacos, a walk by the river. If a hotel lobby made me feel like my bones were buzzing, we changed our coffee shop. We stopped living like people trying to win at marriage and started living like people trying to not blow up our own foundation. Hannah emailed me once, brief and brave. I asked him to leave. He says he can change. Maybe he will. I owe our kids a version of me that doesn't try to rehabilitate a person who told me how he planned to hurt me with a schedule. I wrote back, "You owe yourself that too." Nora texted every third day like a lighthouse. Short, steady, you're doing it. You're allowed to hate all of it. She came by once with a casserole, which felt like both a gesture and an inside joke. We were living a cliché, and the only way through was through. People talk about forgiveness like a cliff you jump off. For me, it was a trail with switchbacks and mosquitoes and a view only every fifth turn. There were nights I wanted to sell the house furnished and drive until the gas ran out. There were mornings she made coffee and sat on the step and said, "I will be worthy of this if it kills me." And I believed her, and also believed she didn't get to say that out loud because it sounded like martyrdom, and I didn't want a martyr. I wanted a partner. At the 60-day mark, the polygraph. I know. Everyone's got an opinion about machines that measure physiology and not morality. But I wasn't doing it to win a trial. I was doing it to shut up a movie in my head. She passed. The examiner was clinical. No significant responses consistent with deception. I wasn't cured by the printout. But it let me sleep that night. At 90 days, Dana drew up a post-nup. Not punitive, protective. If we made it 2 years without a breach, it would dissolve. If not, assets shifted. The cost of the secret paid in future security. Paige read it, cried quietly, and signed. We told our parents a version toned down to the color of our courage. My mother said the thing I love her for most and will never forget. I will love you both, however this ends. Paige's father hugged me and then hugged her and said, "We start again." And the way his voice cracked on again made me both grateful and furious at the universe for handing us this script. Spring broke over Portland, like it always does. Tentatively, then in one long green sentence. One Sunday we restained the deck. Another we put herbs in the planter and pretended we knew which was which. If you squinted, you could mistake us for a couple who had never stood in a wine bar and watched a woman disarm a bomb with her bare voice. At 120 days, Nora texted, "I'm moving. New job. New coast. I will miss the river." I wrote back, "You saved my marriage or freed me to let it go." Both were the same act. Thank you. She sent a heart and then, "You did the saving. I just switched the lights on." 3 months into our post-nup life, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, older, careful. "Mr. Reeves, this is Dr. Keenan at Providence. Paige listed you as her emergency contact. She's fine, just a minor accident on Burnside. She slipped on a curb, sprained wrist. But since she's here, she asked me to speak to you before she does, which is unusual. I can tell you more when you arrive." My heart did the elevator thing again. I drove like I was being chased by time. In the ER, Paige sat with a plastic brace and a face that made me want to both shield and lecture. Dr. Keenan was gray-bearded and kind. He closed the curtain and said, "I understand you two are working through some things." He said it like a man who had lived enough to know everyone is. "We are," I said carefully. He folded his hands. "I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say stress rearranges bodies," he said. "Paige's blood work shows elevated cortisol and, this is the part she asked me to say plainly, early signs that if you plan to have children, you shouldn't wait another 5 years." I stared at the curtain stripe. "Is she healthy?" he said. But the window you thought was a picture might be a door, and doors can close. Paige looked at me like I was the answer sheet to a test neither of us had studied for. I told him to tell you because if I did, you'd hear it through the filter of everything I broke, she said. I didn't want that. I wanted you to know it from someone who doesn't care how we feel. We didn't make a decision in the ER. We went home and sat on the floor with Buster's head in Paige's lap, and we said the quiet parts out loud. I said I didn't want a child to be the glue we used like a bad fix. She said she didn't either, but she wanted not to be punished by a clock she hadn't set. We made a rule. We would measure our readiness not by the size of the apology, but by the size of the ordinary days we could stack without flinching. If we reached 180 of those, we'd speak to a specialist. If not, we wouldn't push a wish through a keyhole. At 174 days, on a Tuesday, Paige came home with a plant I didn't know the name of and said, "I saw Nora's story. She's in New York. She looks happy." She set the plant on the table like it was both a tribute and a living thing that didn't care about our drama. At 181, we called the specialist. Before our first appointment, Paige handed me a paper. It looked like a letter, except the envelope had already been opened, and it was addressed to me 6 years ago. "Homework," she said, eyes creasing. "Dana said write what you wish you'd heard. Now let's decide if we'll say it to a tiny someone someday, or just keep saying it to each other." It wasn't a twist like you see in shows, the kind that makes you rewind and see how the writers hid it in plain sight. It was the other kind. The kind where the twist is that you didn't self-destruct, that you learned an unsexy skill. How to be boring enough to be brave. And then the other twist came, the one I hadn't braced for. At 200 days, my phone lit with a 6:12 a.m. text from an unknown number. "Thank you for warning me." I left, started over. I don't believe in clean slates, but I believe in clean mornings. If you and she make it, know that some of us out here are rooting for the version of you that learned the hardest way to tell the truth once and then live it. H. I read it twice. I walked to the bedroom door where Paige was asleep with Buster snoring like an idling truck on the floor. I didn't wake her. I stood there in the half-light and thought, a stranger's blessing is sometimes the most honest one you get. 1 year to the week after Nora called me, I found a Hyatt keycard in a winter coat I hadn't worn since everything. It wasn't one of ours. It was blank. Just a rectangle of plastic the color of fog. I brought it inside and set it on the counter between an apple and a stack of mail. Paige came in from the backyard with dirt on her knees and saw it like a snake. "Where did you—" "In the coat closet," I said. "I don't know whose, I don't care whose, but we can decide what to do with it." She stared at it a long time. Then she picked it up and slid it into the toaster slot and pressed the lever. It came up warm and soft around the edges. She did it again. The third time, it drooped and curled like a tiny modern sculpture. "Not enough to burn the house down," she said, almost to herself, "but enough to make it unusable." We didn't keep it on the mantel like a trophy. We put it in the trash under the coffee grounds and the Trader Joe's flowers we'd let dry out. That felt right. Not a relic. Compost for a life we were still planting. In the fall, Nora sent a photo of a new skyline. Buster got a gray muzzle. Dana came to our housewarming and stood on the deck and made a terrible joke about amortization that made me like her even more. Hannah sent one more email. "We are okay. Okay looks different than I used to think." That's the gift. Paige and I did not become a couple who posts anniversary paragraphs on Instagram like profession of faith essays. We became the kind of people who know exactly where the other one is on a Friday at 9:30 without needing to check Find My. We became the kind who say, "I feel shaky," out loud, and then sit in the shakiness like a shared weather pattern. On the anniversary, we went to the river and bought 2 expensive ice cream and sat on the bench where I had once thought I could never buy ice cream without thinking of an elevator. I thought of all the people in the story who had told the truth when they weren't obligated to, and how that had saved us by increments. The lawyer whose job was paperwork and whose gift was naming mercy. The friend whose job was not friend, but chose to be one anyway. The stranger wife who refused to teach her kids the wrong lesson about love. When we got home, Paige took my hand at the door like she had the first time we opened it 8 years earlier as renters. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not switching teams and deciding to hate me to make it easier to live with me," she said. "For making a more complicated promise instead." "I hated you a little," I said. "I hated me a lot," she said. We stood there in the entryway. 2 people who had walked through a door we didn't know how to name yet. Maybe we didn't need to. Maybe we just needed to keep walking. If you're reading this looking for permission to leave, you have it. If you're reading this looking for permission to stay, you have that too. The only permission you don't have is to lie to yourself about which one you're choosing. And if you ever find a key card you didn't ask for in a coat you thought was retired, put it in the toaster. Make it harmless, then take out your trash, then take a walk. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't the confrontation scene with a soundtrack. Sometimes it's a Tuesday, quiet, boring, honest, with the river saying the same thing it says every day if you listen. Keep going.